The crystalline chamber of the Galactic Union's High Council had never witnessed such defiance. Ambassador Kira stood before the assembled representatives of 47 civilizations, her simple black suit a stark contrast to the shimmering robes and bioluminescent forms surrounding her. The silence stretched like a taut wire, broken only by the gentle hum of translation matrices. "The answer is no," she repeated, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's collective decision. "Earth formally declines membership in the Galactic Union." The reaction was immediate. Tentacles writhed in agitation, crystalline beings flickered with distress, and the gaseous nebula folk swirled in patterns that spoke of deep confusion. Never in the Union's 12,000-year history had a species refused the honor of joining. Their Galactic Community Council leader Vex, a towering figure with skin like polished obsidian, leaned forward. "Ambassador Kira, surely you misunderstand the magnitude of what we offer. Unlimited knowledge, technology beyond your wildest dreams, protection from cosmic threats. We understand completely." Kira interrupted, her brown eyes steady. "And we're grateful for the offer. But humanity chooses to remain independent." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices. Some species communicated through color changes, others through electromagnetic pulses, creating a symphony of bewilderment that the translation system struggled to process. How could these young humans, barely past their first interstellar voyage, reject the greatest gift the galaxy could offer? Kira had expected this reaction. For months, Earth's leadership had debated the Union's invitation. The benefits were undeniable: instant access to technologies that would solve hunger, disease, even death itself. But the cost was equally clear: complete integration into the Union's collective consciousness, where individual cultures eventually dissolved into a homogeneous galactic identity. "You don't understand," pressed Counselor Zen, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering field. "Isolation leads to stagnation. Every species that has tried to develop alone has either destroyed itself or been consumed by the dark. Forces that lurk between stars." "Maybe," Kira acknowledged. "But we'd rather face those risks as ourselves than lose what makes us human." The word human carried strange weight in the universal translator. Other species had words for person or individual, but none quite captured the fierce independence and stubborn hope that seemed to define this young race. Admiral Nex of the Void Riders, a species that had joined the Union 3 millennia ago, spoke with the voice of experience. "I remember when my people thought as you do. We believed our warrior culture was too precious to dilute. Now we are content, peaceful, part of something greater. The transition is not a loss, it is an evolution." Kira nodded respectfully. "And we're happy for you. But humanity's path lies elsewhere." The debate continued for hours, with various council members offering increasingly generous terms. They would allow Earth to retain its governments, its languages, even its wars if necessary. But Kira's answer remained unchanged. As the session drew to a close, Counselor Zara, an ancient being whose species had helped found the Union, spoke with a voice like wind through crystal caves. "Child of Earth, you speak with such certainty. But the galaxy is vast and dark. The Union exists not just for prosperity, but for survival. There are things out there that even we fear." For the first time, Kira's composure wavered slightly. The elderly counselor's words carried the weight of eons, hinting at threats that lurked beyond the comfortable boundaries of Union space. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. "We appreciate the warning," Kira said finally. "But humanity has faced the dark before. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars that nearly destroyed us. We'll find a way to survive whatever comes next." The council chamber fell silent once more. In that moment, something shifted in the galactic community's understanding of these strange beings from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. They were not just stubborn. They were something else entirely. 5 years passed in the blink of a cosmic eye. The Galactic Union continued its expansion, absorbing 2 more civilizations who gratefully accepted the gift of collective consciousness. Meanwhile, Earth remained conspicuously absent from their star charts, a small blue dot that had dared to say no to the galaxy's greatest power. Ambassador Kira had returned to Earth as a hero, though she often wondered if they had made the right choice. The Union's warnings about cosmic threats had not been idle chatter long range. Sensors detected strange energy signatures moving through the void, patterns that suggested something ancient and hostile stirring in the darkness between galaxies, but humanity had not been idle. Without the Union's advanced technology, they had been forced to innovate, to push the boundaries of what was possible with their limited resources. The results were beginning to show. Dr. Maya Shen stood in the observation deck of humanity's first deep space research station, watching her latest creation come online. The Prometheus drive, humanity's answer to faster-than-light travel, hummed to life with a sound that seemed to resonate in the very fabric of space-time. Readings are stable, reported engineer Tom as he monitored the exotic matter containment field. The drive is generating a localized space-time distortion without requiring any external power source. Maya nodded, her heart racing with excitement. The Union's ships achieved faster-than-light travel by tapping into the collective psychic energy of their member species, a method that required total mental integration with the galactic consciousness. Humanity's approach was different, based on their understanding of quantum mechanics and their stubborn refusal to accept that something was impossible simply because it was difficult. "Initiate the test sequence," she commanded. The station shuddered. As the Prometheus drive engaged, bending space around the small test ship docked to their hull. In an instant, the vessel vanished, reappearing 3 light-years away in a burst of exotic radiation that lit up their sensors like a Christmas tree. "It worked," Tom breathed, his face pale with awe. "We actually did it," but their celebration was short-lived. The deep space monitoring stations began reporting unusual activity throughout the galaxy. Ships were disappearing without trace, entire solar systems going dark. The Union's mighty fleet, which had maintained peace for millennia, was struggling against an enemy that seemed to strike from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. On the Union's capital world of Harmony, emergency sessions ran day and night. The entity they faced was unlike anything in their vast databases, a hive mind of mechanical beings that consumed matter and energy with ruthless efficiency. Worse, it seemed immune to the Union's greatest weapon, their collective consciousness, which had always been able to overwhelm and absorb hostile entities. The Devourers, as they had come to be known, were spreading through Union space like a plague. Entire fleets would engage them, only to be systematically dismantled by enemies that adapted to every tactic, every weapon, every strategy the Union employed. In desperation, the Council turned to their most advanced civilizations for solutions. The Transcendents, beings of pure thought who had evolved beyond physical form, offered their wisdom. The Architects, master builders who had constructed Dyson spheres around a dozen stars, provided their most powerful weapons. The Harmony Singers, whose telepathic abilities could influence reality itself, lent their voices to the cause. Nothing worked. The Devourers consumed everything with mechanical precision, their numbers growing with each victory. Worlds that had known peace for centuries burned under skies filled with metallic swarms. The Union's greatest strength, their unity of purpose and thought, seemed to be their weakness against an enemy that could predict their every move. It was during the darkest hour, as the Devourers consumed the outer colonies of the Nexus system, that someone mentioned the humans. "The primitives from Earth?" scoffed Admiral Nex, his warrior instincts dulled by millennia of peaceful integration. What could they possibly offer? They don't even have proper faster-than-light travel. But Counselor Zara, whose ancient wisdom had guided the Union through countless crises, saw something others missed. Perhaps, she said slowly, that is exactly what we need. An enemy that thinks as we do cannot surprise us. But these humans, they think differently. They refused our gift of unity, chose chaos over order, individuality over collective strength. The suggestion was radical, almost heretical. To ask for help from beings who had rejected the Union's core philosophy was to admit that their way might not be the only way or the best way. We have tried everything else, Zara continued. Our predictions, our strategies, our weapons all have failed. Perhaps it is time to try unpredictability. The council chamber buzzed with uncomfortable energy. The idea of humans with their violent history and chaotic nature leading the galaxy's defense was almost unthinkable. But as reports came in of another system falling to the Devourers, unthinkable began to seem like their only option. Send a message to Earth, Council Leader Vex finally commanded, his voice heavy with the weight of unprecedented humility. Tell them the galaxy needs their help. The message reached Earth during a routine diplomatic meeting at the newly constructed Orbital Station Terra Prime. Ambassador Kira, now serving as Earth's Minister of Galactic Affairs, watched the holographic display with growing alarm as the Union's desperate plea unfolded. The images were devastating. Entire fleets reduced to drifting debris, planets stripped of their atmospheres, star systems going dark as some unimaginable force consumed everything in its path. The mighty Galactic Union, which had ruled the cosmos for 12,000 years, was begging for help from the species they had once dismissed as primitive. They're asking us to lead their defense, General Ross said, his weathered face grave as he reviewed the tactical data. Their entire military command structure is requesting that we take operational control of the war effort. President Vale, Earth's first leader to be born in space, leaned back in her chair. 5 years ago, they wanted us to join their collective consciousness. Now they want us to save them from extinction. The irony is not lost on me. Kira studied the data streams, her mind working through the implications. Look at their battle reports. Every engagement follows the same pattern. They deploy their fleets in perfect coordination, use their most advanced weapons, and the enemy systematically dismantles them. It's like the Devourers know exactly what they're going to do. Because they do, interrupted Dr. Maya, joining the meeting via quantum entanglement communicator from her research station. I've been analyzing their tactical data. The Union's collective consciousness makes them incredibly efficient, but also incredibly predictable. They think as one mind, which means they can only conceive of one solution to any given problem. The President nodded slowly. While we're chaos incarnate, Kira finished. 47 different cultures, each with their own military traditions, their own ways of thinking about warfare. We can't even agree on the best way to make coffee, let alone fight a war. That's our strength, Maya continued. The Devourers adapt to patterns, but we don't have patterns. We have Captain Harris who thinks like a submarine commander, General Kim who learned tactics from ancient Earth strategists, and Admiral Santos who grew up playing three-dimensional chess with her grandmother. We're unpredictable because we're not really unified. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's greatest weakness, their inability to achieve true unity, might be the galaxy's salvation. There's another factor, General Ross added, pulling up a holographic display of human military doctrine. We've been preparing for this kind of war since we first looked up at the stars. Every human culture has stories about fighting impossible, odds about standing against overwhelming darkness. It's in our mythology, our literature, our very DNA. President Vale stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the blue marble of Earth hanging in the void. The Union asked us to join them because they thought we needed their protection. Now they need ours. But if we do this, if we take command of their forces, we'll be responsible for the survival of 47 different civilizations. 49. Kira corrected. 2 more species joined the Union last year. 49 civilizations, Vale repeated. Billions of lives depending on our chaotic, unpredictable, thoroughly human approach to warfare. The weight of the decision pressed down on the room like a physical force. They were being asked to risk everything, not just their own species, but the entire galactic community. Failure would mean the extinction of countless worlds, the end of civilizations that had existed for millennia. But success would prove something that humanity had always believed, something that had driven them to reject the Union's offer in the first place: that diversity of thought, independence of spirit, and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat were not weaknesses to be overcome, but strengths to be celebrated. "We'll need complete tactical authority," General Ross said finally. "No interference from the Union's military hierarchy, no second-guessing our decisions. If we're going to fight this war our way, we need to fight it our way." "Agreed," President Vale said. "But we do this as partners, not conquerors. The Union may have made mistakes, but they're still our allies. We fight to save them, not to rule." "Them." Kira was already composing the response in her mind. "I'll need to return to the Union capital immediately. We'll need to establish a joint command structure, coordinate our forces with theirs, and somehow convince 49 different species to trust our judgment. The hard part," Maya added with a wry smile, "will be convincing ourselves that we know what we're doing." As the meeting dispersed, each participant carrying the weight of their species' destiny, none of them could have predicted how profoundly their decision would reshape the galaxy. Humanity was about to introduce the cosmos to concepts that had been nearly forgotten in the Union's ordered society: improvisation, calculated risks, and the uniquely human ability to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. The Devourers had adapted to fight a unified enemy. They were about to face something far more dangerous, a species that had spent its entire existence learning to fight itself. The Joint Command Center established on the Union capital world of Harmony was a study in controlled chaos. Humans worked alongside beings of pure energy, their tactical displays flickering between 49 different military symbologies. The constant chatter of translation matrices filled the air, as species that had never directly communicated before learned to coordinate their efforts. Admiral Sarah Chun, humanity's top military strategist, stood at the center of it all, her calm demeanor hiding the tremendous pressure she felt. Around her, Union officers who had spent centuries thinking in perfect harmony struggled to adapt to human military doctrine, which seemed to embrace contradiction as a virtue. "The Devourers are massing for an assault on the Kepler system," reported Commander Vale, a crystalline being whose species communicated through harmonic resonance. "Their fleet composition matches the pattern from their previous attacks, a clear sign they're preparing for systematic planetary consumption." "Perfect," Admiral Chen said, her response causing visible confusion among the Union officers. "They're doing exactly what we want them to do." General Ross, coordinating with his human colleagues via quantum entanglement, studied the tactical display with satisfaction. The beauty of fighting a predictable enemy is that you can set traps. They've analyzed our preliminary engagements and concluded that we're just another variant of Union military doctrine. They're wrong. The plan that humanity had developed was audacious in its simplicity. For weeks they had allowed the Devourers to engage human-led fleets in what appeared to be conventional battles. Each encounter had been carefully choreographed to reinforce the enemy's assumptions about human tactics while secretly gathering intelligence about their adaptation mechanisms. Now, as the Devourers committed their forces to what they believed would be another routine conquest, humanity was ready to reveal their true nature. "All units, this is Admiral Chun. Execute Operation Pandora." Across the Kepler system, the carefully orchestrated chaos began. Human commanders who had been holding back their most unpredictable tactics suddenly unleashed strategies that had no precedent in galactic warfare. Captain Davis, a former asteroid miner, used his intimate knowledge of zero-gravity navigation to turn his battleship into a three-dimensional boxer, striking from impossible angles. Commander Park, who had learned tactics from ancient Earth war games, implemented strategies based on 21st-century insurgency warfare, adapting them to space combat with devastating effect. But the true revelation came when the human fleet began operating in a way that defied every principle of Union military doctrine. Instead of maintaining perfect coordination, they deliberately created confusion, miscommunication, and apparent tactical errors that somehow combined into a cohesive strategy. The Devourers, who had evolved to predict and counter unified tactics, found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to be fighting itself as much as fighting them. Human ships would break formation without warning, commanders would contradict each other's orders, and entire squadrons would pursue objectives that seemed to have no connection to the overall battle plan. Yet somehow it worked. Their adaptation algorithms are failing, reported Dr. Maya from her research station, monitoring the enemy's response patterns. The Devourers are designed to analyze and counter coherent strategies. They can't predict our next move because we're not sure what our next move is going to be. The battle raged for hours, with human creativity pitted against mechanical precision. Union forces, accustomed to following predetermined battle plans, found themselves forced to improvise as their human commanders issued orders that seemed to contradict everything they knew about warfare. "This is madness," transmitted Admiral Nex, his warrior instincts struggling to comprehend the chaos around him. "Your ships are attacking in 17 different directions simultaneously. Your commanders are contradicting each other. Your tactical formations are effective," Admiral Chun interrupted, watching as another Devourer hive ship succumbed to an attack that had come from a direction it never could have predicted. "We're not fighting as one unified force. We're fighting as 47. Different species, each with their own military traditions, their own ways of thinking about warfare." The revelation struck the Union forces like a lightning bolt. For the first time in millennia, they were seeing the value of diversity, of independent thought, of the chaos that emerged when different minds approached the same problem from different angles. As the battle reached its climax, something unprecedented happened. Union commanders began to break from their predetermined roles, drawing on their species' ancient military traditions that had been suppressed during their integration into the collective consciousness. The gaseous nebula folk remembered their skills as masters of stealth warfare. The crystalline resonance recalled their ability to use harmonic frequencies as weapons. The bioluminescent glow speakers rediscovered their talent for psychological warfare. For the first time since their integration into the Union, these species were fighting as themselves, not as components of a larger machine. The Devourers faced with an enemy that changed its nature with each passing moment, began to falter. Their adaptation algorithms, designed to counter unified strategies, couldn't process the infinite variables that emerged from true diversity of thought. "The enemy fleet is withdrawing," reported Commander Vale, her crystalline form flickering with what humans recognized as excitement. "They're retreating from the system." But Admiral Chun wasn't ready to celebrate yet. "This is just the beginning. We've shown them that their primary advantage, their ability to predict and counter our tactics, can be neutralized. But they'll adapt to this too. They'll find new ways to fight us. Then we'll find new ways to be unpredictable," General Ross said with a grin that was visible even through the quantum communication link. After all, that's what humans do best. As the joint fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase of the war, something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. The Union had rediscovered the value of individual thought, while humanity had learned that their greatest strength lay not in spite of their differences, But because of them, the Devourers had made a critical error. They had assumed that evolution meant moving toward uniformity, toward perfect efficiency. They were about to learn that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is controlled chaos. 6 months after the victory at Kepler, the galaxy had transformed in ways that neither humanity nor the Union could have imagined. The rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic civilization for 12 millennia were giving way to something unprecedented, a truly collaborative alliance where diversity of thought was not just tolerated but celebrated. Ambassador Kira stood in the reconstructed council chamber on Harmony, watching as representatives from 49 different species engaged in what could only be described as organized chaos. The resonants were harmonizing with the glow speakers to create new forms of communication, while the nebula folk shared stealth techniques with human engineers. The ancient protocols of formal debate had been replaced by something far more dynamic: actual discussion. "The reports from the Outer Rim are encouraging," announced Counselor Zara, her ancient wisdom now tempered with something that hadn't existed in the Union for centuries: genuine curiosity about other perspectives. "Our mixed species fleets have successfully repelled 3 more Devourer incursions. Their adaptation algorithm still cannot process our tactical diversity." Admiral Chun, now serving as the Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Forces, nodded as she reviewed the latest intelligence reports. "The Devourers are withdrawing to the dark space between galaxies. Our analysis suggests they're regrouping, possibly seeking new prey in neighboring galaxy clusters." "Good riddance," muttered General Ross, though his expression remained serious. "But we can't assume they won't be back. They've learned from our engagements, even if they can't predict our tactics." The war had taught both species something crucial about the nature of conflict and cooperation. The Union had discovered that their greatest strength, unity of purpose, could become a weakness when facing enemies that exploited predictability. Humanity had learned that their chaotic nature, while effective in warfare, could be channeled into something even more powerful: true collaboration. Dr. Maya, now serving as the head of the Joint Research Initiative, presented her latest findings. "The Devourers aren't just mechanical beings. They're the remnants of a civilization that achieved perfect unity through technology. Every individual merged into a collective consciousness, creating a hive mind that could adapt to any threat. But they lost something in the process: the ability to innovate, to create, to think beyond their programming. They became what we might have become," Kira observed, her words carrying weight that everyone in the chamber understood. "If humanity had accepted the Union's original offer, if we had all merged into a single consciousness, we might have faced the same stagnation." Council Leader Vex, whose understanding of leadership had evolved dramatically over the past months, spoke with a humility that would have been impossible in the old Union. "Your people saved us from more than just the Devourers. You saved us from ourselves. We had become so focused on harmony that we forgot the value of discord, so committed to unity that we lost sight of individuality." The transformation wasn't just philosophical, it was practical. Union technologies, once rigidly standardized, were being adapted and modified by species that had rediscovered their individual ingenuity. Human innovation, once chaotic and unfocused, was being channeled through the Union's vast knowledge base to create solutions that neither could have achieved alone. "The Prometheus drive is being integrated into Union ship designs," reported Engineer Tom, his excitement visible even through the holographic display. "But each species is modifying it according to their own physics understanding. The resonants are using harmonic resonance to stabilize the space-time distortions. The Transcendents are applying consciousness-based navigation. The results are remarkable." Indeed, the new alliance was producing technological innovations at a rate that dwarfed anything in galactic history. When 49 different ways of thinking about the same problems were allowed to flourish, The solutions that emerged were both elegant and unexpected, but perhaps the most significant change was cultural. The Union's rigid social structure, based on the gradual absorption of individual species into a collective consciousness, had been replaced by something more complex and ultimately more resilient. Species maintained their individual identities while collaborating on an unprecedented scale. "We're calling it the Galactic Cooperative," President Vale announced, her words carrying the authority of someone who had helped shape a new form of interstellar governance. Not a union based on assimilation, but a partnership based on mutual respect and shared purpose. The name carried symbolic weight. Where the Union had implied the merging of separate entities into a single whole, the cooperative suggested individual elements working together while maintaining their essential nature. "The humans have taught us something that we thought we knew but had forgotten," Counselor Zara said, her ancient voice carrying the wisdom of eons. "Strength doesn't come from uniformity. It comes from the harmony that emerges when different voices sing together without losing their individual songs." As the council session concluded, Kira found herself standing once again at the great viewport, looking out at the stars. But now, instead of seeing a vast and threatening cosmos, she saw opportunity. The galaxy was vast enough for 49 different approaches to civilization, 49 different ways of understanding the universe. "No regrets?" asked Admiral Chun, joining her at the VIEWPOR. Kira smiled, remembering the moment 5 years ago when she had stood in this same chamber and refused the Union's offer of membership. "None. We chose our path, and it led us here. To a galaxy where being different isn't a weakness to be overcome, but a strength to be celebrated. And if the Devourers return, then we'll face them as we always have, together, but not as one. United in purpose, but not in thought. Diverse, chaotic, unpredictable, and utterly human." The stars seemed to shine a little brighter as the Galactic Cooperative settled into its new reality. Humanity had rejected the Union's offer of perfect unity, and in doing so, had given the galaxy something far more valuable: the courage to be different, the wisdom to celebrate diversity, and the strength that comes from true cooperation. The cosmos was vast and full of unknown threats, but for the first time in galactic history, it was also full of infinite possibilities. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that humanity had always known: sometimes the best way to unite is to embrace what makes you different.